on Facebook, and then we can download it and share it for this Wednesday's podcast episode.
Okay.
Okay, about three, two, one, but you'll also see the indicator top right.
I see it.
Yay! Today is Monday, and we have a special guest joining us for the Plan to podcast. Make sure you guys check us out on YouTube and all of your streaming platforms. But today I'm excited to introduce Gabrielle, who is an educator and founder. She's an entrepreneur, and she founded, of course, we would have these tech issues. I'm speaking to you guys while my video just somehow sporadically went out. But Gabrielle is the entrepreneur, educator, and founder of A Step Ahead Tutoring Services based in the New York area and the host of Hot Topics. So I'm eager to get her thoughts on the state of podcasting today, how many people we're seeing enter into the space, hear about her origin story, and learn about her business. And so, thank you. Without further ado, happy Monday and thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me again. Um, so I appreciate
Absolutely.
the crossover opportunity.
Absolutely. And likewise. So, again, Gabrielle was on a former platform. I would say at that time, it was right after I had wrapped with Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, you guys. But it was right after the time I wrapped doing a podcast with my mother. I was looking for my next thing, but I knew it had to be podcasting. So I started Follow Me Friday. Follow Me Friday, I would say, was just a way to connect with other people in this digital space. And it was one of the most smartest things that I did at the time just to scale and like get myself right into podcasting. And so that was a couple of years ago. I say I started as a pandemic podcaster, so that's kind of my cohort and origin story. And at that time, Gabrielle joined me on goodness. Today just doesn't want us to be great, but we say whatever to all of that. So excuse the glitch, but that's when you joined me on the platform. So thank you. What was happening at that time when you were joining for Follow Me Friday? What were you doing at that time?
So remind me again. I think that was a
Like
couple years
3 or 4
ago,
years ago?
3 or 4 years ago. Um, what was I doing at that time? I mean, kind of the same thing I was doing now. But I think around that time, 'cause I think I connected to you through um well I had like a booker. I hired someone to
Mm.
help me find well, I think I will say this. It was around the time that um I was getting into the podcasting business and I wanted to start my own show. And so I actually no, I already started but it was in my infancy and I hired someone to help me find guests for the show. And it was that, but also to find shows for me to be on.
Yeah.
So one of the shows for me to be on as a guest was yours.
hmm
And
So
he
around that time, we probably found each other through Need a Guest. So it had to be your
yeah,
representative who probably put a post up saying that my client is looking for a guest or vice versa. And that's probably where we aligned. And so at that time, it sounds like you hired someone to do that work for you, but now I know now you're using other platforms. So like Podmatch or Facebook groups to find guests?
Yes, so now I don't have that representative anymore. But I've been using other means. So I was doing it myself and well, in terms of finding either me being a guest or someone else being the guest, I started I did it myself after that. So I was doing Facebook groups, mainly Facebook groups. So I think the Need a Guest Facebook group, and then there's a few others that I was using, and then it was also using people that I already know, like so using my friends, right? So using my personal network, and then eventually, I incorporated Podmatch, which is a financial investment, so it's not free, FYI, but lately I've been using Podmatch to find my guests.
You guys, I'm also transitioning over to my phone because I'm noticing that there's just too many times in this interview that my video has went out. Okay, so got that. You are settled right now on like Podmatch and using Facebook groups, but you've taken a kind of scenic route and you use different means to kind of find guests and be a guest on other people's platforms. But let's go back to just starting in the first place. Which came first, the business or the podcast?
The business came first. So I'm in the tutoring business. The business started in 2013, and then I was not even thinking about podcasting. It really was focusing on the tutoring aspect of it. Um, because going to people's homes to do my sessions, but I was strictly in person. So I stayed doing that until the COVID-19 pandemic came in 2020. So that's a period of 7 years. And is that 7 years? Yeah, I think 7 years. So I was strictly in-person tutoring for 7 years until COVID-19 came around and forced the world to shut down. Um, so I was, it really threw me out of a loop because it forced me I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't really meet anyone in person. And so I had to transition to online tutoring at an instant. And so I was building that. And so I switched to online tutoring and I was getting a hang of the the mechanism by which I was using tutoring, which is Zoom. So as I figured out the mechanics behind Zoom and how it worked and getting the files and sharing screens and things like that. And when I saw the capabilities of Zoom and what I was able to do with it, I was like, I can use this. I can use this well, before I wasn't doing audio, but I can use this to do a TV show. I was using this to um do a video show. Like it was one of those things that I was always thinking about. Like I would love to get on TV. I would love to do a show. And so, when the pandemic came around and I was exploring how Zoom worked, I was like, oh, okay, I can use this. I can use
Oh,
this. Yeah, I can use this and get on YouTube, right? And um, so that's how I started, right? So I started on Zoom and I started off with my friends, right? So my first guest was a friend of mine in the daycare business. I just asked her, "Hey, do you want to be my first guest?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure." So, it's just one of those things where you just you just have to take that leap of faith and get started. And so I wasn't a podcast yet. So it was just a web series. Um, so I started that and then I just kept going. So it was her, and then I, hired the representative to find guests for me. And then I happened to, and this is all we're still in the pandemic. And then so I can continue with that, and then I later incorporated audio by a random connection that I made for somebody else, where I well, it was, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out how to explain it, but I hired somebody else to get me onto audio, and um that arrangement fell through, unfortunately, due to creative differences, I would say. But then when I saw how that person was doing audio, I was like, oh, I could do that myself, right? So,
I have a
um,
few questions for you. I want to pause you there and back
yeah.
up just a little bit. So, first of all, you started with interviewing some of your close friends and family, and they were entrepreneurs. What was the correlation at the time? So, you just wanted to have a talk show, so you were open to interviewing any type of guest, or were you very clear that you wanted to use your business speaking to parents and people who need your tutoring services, and you were trying to target them specifically, or were you just open to anyone who wanted to come on? What was the concept back then when you first started?
So the idea was so I really was open to anybody really, but within a certain scope. So since I had a tutoring business, I wanted the talk show to be education related. So I wasn't focused on just tutoring. It was more of anyone. I wanted to educate the public about something. So I did take a broad scope. So I didn't just narrow it to tutoring. It was any kind of educational topic. So
Mm-hmm.
the idea was, if there's things that I wanted to bring to light, right? So I did have an educational purpose, but I was open to anybody at the time. So like
Have you
that.
would you say you've narrowed in the focus, or would you say you've stayed along that path for the whole time that you've had your podcast?
Would say I stayed on that path, but coming because on my yes, while I have a tutoring business, because I've brought up topics like, ethical non-monogamy, artificial intelligence, relationships, um, what is a podcast? I've also talked to other tutors about the tutoring business, right? So I've been broad in my topics, but I stayed within a particular scope. Um, so I will say that I have kept it that way, but I've been pickier about the type of guests.
Okay, and then when it comes to possibly converting some of those audience or guests to working with you, is that a straight and narrow? Do you have some type of system or funnel system that you take people through to land them into your services?
So what I have is, so what I've done is I like in my intro and outro, right? So in the intro, I would say, welcome to Hot Topics. This is an educational type of show, as we are part of Step Ahead Tutoring Services. And then in the outro, I've plugged my business. So the guest comes on, I do the my guest promo first, and then when that's done, then I plug my business and I say this is a part of a step ahead tutoring services. This is my website. This is all my contact information. If I happen to, what I've started to do maybe in the past couple years, it depends on the topic, but if it's things that I can use to connect to tutoring to make a bridge, that's what I've done on my outro. So, for example, I've had someone on my show talk about divorce and how it affects children. And so in my outro, I would say, you know what, the thing with divorce and children is because it leads to depression and they're disconnected from school and you could tell that they're disconnected when they don't do homework, when they're acting out, so when you see these types of things, right, that's when you get a tutor and that's where we come in. So what I've done was whatever the topic was, I connected it to tutoring somehow.
Mhm.
And then I said, we're get our tutoring services. Here's all of our information.
hmm So you've kind of laid out a framework that I use anytime I work with someone. And I believe that to have a sustainable podcast, you really need these five core things, which are all P's, by the way. So you need a plan, you need a production process. That means the equipment that you purchase and then how you kind of flow. You need to choose a platform. You need to track your performance, and you need to have a system to help you promote. So you've kind of already, without knowing my 5 Ps framework, you've already kind of touched on all of those things. And I don't know if you realize that you've already created a funnel for yourself within your own ecosystem. And first and foremost, your plan was I want a talk show. I want a show where I'm talking to a broad group of people, right? And in that, the next thing is I'm paying attention to the production. I realized with finding guests, I could solicit the help of someone, or I can use these other platforms to find guests, i.e., how you hired someone versus using tools like Podmatch. And then you said, hey, Zoom is a very useful tool. I'm already using it. Let me just apply that to this talk show or this show that I want to produce at the time. And tracking your performance, like with the type of guests that you've had, started with friends and family. It's since created and carved out its own little niche. And through that, you're giving people at the top of your show and your intro, your promotion, your call to action. Make sure you check out my tutoring services. So you've really found a nice way to have these different touch points for your listeners to move them into working with you and hiring you for your services. And you found a way to do it in this very nice, um, I guess I want to say linear way, fluid way is the word I was looking for to achieve that. Have you been able to track the data? Do you see that it's been working? Where are you at in terms of the podcast and the business right now with scaling?
So I will be frank. I haven't, in terms of has it converted into clients for me? I will say no. Um, but I will say it has done other it has done other things for me in terms of exposure. So while it hasn't converted into sales yet, I'm gonna say yet, but
Mm-hmm.
it has increased my network. So
Mm-hmm.
because of meeting other people and finding guests that want to talk about particular things that I wanted to talk about, like I've talked about studying abroad, because I studied abroad. it increased my network, right? So
Mhm.
now I know a bunch of other entrepreneurs, and if I personally need something, I know I can contact them, right? So
Mhm.
like I have an Easter basket auction that I do for my church every year. And so when I want to solicit donations, I know to ask certain people, right? So it has served me personally. It has increased my network. It has um allowed me to learn more things about the podcasting world
Mhm.
that I never thought I would learn. And it
Mhm.
just kind of uh sprung me into this world without me even realizing it, like learning about the type of microphone to use, learning about well, I've since used StreamYard now, because before I was on Zoom and then I was on another show and I saw that they use StreamYard and I liked the glitz and glamour about it. And so I was like, I like that. What is this? Oh, and then Zoom was very glitchy, so I wanted to transition elsewhere. But
By the way, I
but
use Zoom today.
yeah, so
With
I
all
was
my
like,
glitches, I use Zoom.
I need a different pro
Hilarious.
yeah, I need a different platform. So I was on another show and they were using StreamYard. I was like, "Do you like this?" And they're like, "Yeah." I was like, "You know what? Okay, I'll give it a shot." And lo and behold. So I think
Mhm.
while it hasn't exactly converted to sales for me yet, but it has increased my network. It has exposed me to other entrepreneurs. It has dove me further into the podcasting world where I
Mhm.
learned about audio, where I learned about getting on public access TV, where I learned so much about being a podcaster. So,
No, that's good. Like you built up some cachet in this game, right? That's what people say, building authority, building trust. And then throughout the entire time, you've been nurturing those relationships by showing up consistently. And like you said, you can still reach out to some of the former people you've worked with and ask if they can support you with your fundraiser or something like that. So that right now can all be leveraged. You found a way to nurture, be consistent, be trustworthy. People will know that they can show up and they can see. Like I went on your LinkedIn, everything is hot topics. You've consistently been showing up as the authority and it's been cohesive the entire time. The branding has been a cohesive brand, and that's something that people can trust and something you can hang your hat on. And like I said, it's all things that can be leveraged. So then what is next for Hot Topics and what is next for the business? What are your some long-term or short-term goals?
well, with the podcast, I definitely want to continue to grow, right? I want to continue with TV. I was on radio before. I'd love to get back into radio. And I think the thing with podcasting is when you realize how you can manipulate the technology, so using video files and using audio files and oh, I can take these audio files and put it in all these different places. I could take these same video files and put it in all these different places. You you can go far with your podcast. So I definitely want to expand my TV presence more, expand my radio presence more. So that's that into podcasting. Um, in terms of the business, so well, I recently moved to Long Island, so I want to start spreading my wings. And I used to live in Brooklyn. Now I moved to Nassau County, so I'm looking to spread my wings here in Long Island. So definitely reaching out to the clientele over here. And even with that, like I started fusing the podcast into tutoring where I promote my podcasts on my brochures. So I put it on my brochures, I put it on my business cards, I put it on flyers. hot this a step ahead tutoring services. Oh, we have a podcast. Here's a QR code, right? So wherever I put it out, um, there's the podcast right there. So, but yes, in terms of where my company is going, so increasing my services into Long Island. So that's what I'm currently working on right now. Oh, I've since um picked up a hybrid model. So I returned to in-person tutoring a few years ago, but now I'm doing both. So now it's in-person and virtual. So I have adopted a hybrid model. So I have been growing that. I'm expanding my service area. So that's where I'm looking right. That's where I'm going right now.
I love it. So right away when you mentioned TV and radio, those are also just thinking about where podcasting is heading. A lot of people are now moving their podcasts onto TV, like whether it is a Roku channel or now you see The Breakfast Club on Netflix. So a lot of people are moving their platforms to bigger bigger platforms. They're moving their podcast to bigger platforms. Is that anything that interests you? Have you ever thought about that? And same thing with radio. Now they're making it easier by joining into someone else's network. Your podcast can be on the radio station. Have you thought about or researched any further into that topic?
I mean, I people have brought it to my attention, but I think financially I'm not there yet. Um, so right now I've kind of stuck to public access TV. I did have a I did get onto a radio station in Atlanta for a while. So that I'm currently doing, but I that one I'm gonna do until June of this year. But in terms of continuing that, I am looking for opportunities right now to do that, to continue with the radio. Netflix would be interesting. I'm interested in getting onto Netflix. Um, but again, I'm not financially there at the moment, but I do have that on the horizon. So
Yeah, that's
I'm
awesome.
open to any possibility. And I think because I know how to share a video file and how to share an MP4 or an MP3. You manipulate the technology and then you apply it. I think the opportunities are endless.
I love that. Okay, let's go to some monetization strategies. Tell me a little bit about the business model itself. When you are working with someone, are you doing it on a contract basis? So you have to guarantee that you work with the client for a certain X amount of months, or how does the business model work?
You mean for the tutoring business or for the
Yeah,
podcast?
for the tutoring business. Yeah.
So the tutoring business, so I don't do a contract model, so I'm more liberal in that sense.
Hmm.
I do it's more of like maybe like a verbal of more of a verbal I don't say I guess a verbal agreement. I
Yeah.
think the idea being you've hired me to do the services. All right, I'm gonna come out to your home or I'm going to meet you on Zoom and I just take it from
Well,
there.
what I get from you saying is it's more case by case.
Yeah, but I don't in terms of like a written contract, no, not really. It's just more
Okay.
of I show up and I do my job and you pay me and that's it.
Okay.
So, yeah, in terms of a written contract, a written agreement, I know other tutors that do that, but in terms of me personally, no. And I find it easier that way.
What other
Just
ways are you working with? So you provide what service exactly? And then do you have anything like a product that you could also offer in terms of monetization for the business?
so right now it's just services. So I do in-person tutoring services. So that's one-on-one tutoring. I also do test prep. I also do college counseling. I also do editing and proofreading, but I do it in a collaborative sense. So not like you could drop off a paper, I edit it for you, and I give it back to you, but more of we'll work together to edit this paper. Um, but that I do. Um, so I so the in-person part, I would go to the client's home. So I don't have a physical space, but I go to the client's home to do those services. We could also meet up in a library, right? So I've also done public spaces like libraries, or if they're going to the grandma's house or somebody's job. But it's wherever is convenient for the parent. So I show up in person. I also have the virtual space where I've been using Zoom to do the sessions.
Hmm. Have you thought about even in that casting out an even wider net with group sessions so you have more than one enrollee and then you're able to work with all of them simultaneously in a virtual world,
I've thought of
virtual
that.
setting?
Yeah, I am open to it. Um, it would, as of now, it would be in terms of me finding the group would have to come to me. So, if a parent wanted to hook up with 3 or 4 friends, um, and all of their kids are in the same grade, or they're having the same s- difficulties in a subject, they could come to me. I have While I don't do groups right now, I am open to it. And I am curious to see, especially if the groups are small, like no more than 5 kids. I am open to that, but right now it would have to be something like, and I guess I might as well just put it out there and see what happens. But if a parent had 3 or 4 friends and they wanted to have them in a virtual setting, um, I could experiment with that, but it would have to be brought to me at this time, as opposed to just I'm looking for people to fill a class. But I am open to it, and I would like to explore it. So
Hmm. So I like the idea too of parents, but I'm thinking even bigger than that is some of these institutions, maybe contractually, where they have to make sure that there's a pipeline, so there's a system. They can refer their class, their group, their students to you, and you are on a contract with that institution. I'm thinking about military or schools because you said you offer a few different test prep. But that's my take on it. Yes, parents, but also going bigger for like the big contracts where you're negotiating that you're going to work with their cohort of students, you know, quarterly or whatever. Going back to the test prep thing, is there a way that within the test prep services you offer that you can package that up as a product? Maybe a digital download, maybe an ebook, or whatever other things that you can package. Have you thought about creating some type of digital product from maybe test prep or just wrapping and marketing your knowledge at all?
I have thought about it, but I guess I've found difficulty in doing it that way. Um, because with the way that I do test prep, I use other other sources. So it's not like, I mean, I've thought about like creating my own book, but I've I think it's just been easier for me to stick to the service part. Um, because I don't want to I just am concerned about taking on too much right now. So it's been easier for me to just stick to the service part as opposed to putting together an ebook. Um, so it's one of the things that I don't do at this time. It's something that I would like to do. but I've just been focused more on the service part.
Hmm.
So I
Well,
haven't been able to commit to something like that.
I will say, just thinking about the digital product, that would obviously free up your time a lot more. You put in the effort once, maybe a few hours in 1 week, especially now with AI. And that could be something that you just have working for you, even without you having to promote it or market it. Because again, going back to the funnel, you just promote it once in your description. People can click that link and it's always working even when you're not actively promoting it. So that, residual income is working in your favor. Um, but I'm thinking maybe since you're using other tools, it's not that you're trying to compete with that. You can say, these are my recommendations, and that can be a digital download that people are willing to purchase because they know you have experience. So you know the top type of things that people should be using to study. You can offer your list of 10 different books that I recommend you use. Or you can create your study guide saying, this is how I recommend you study for this book or study for this test, what steps you should do. Everything from waking up at a specific time and day to, how you should prepare and be prepared for the day of the test. I think you can package that and that can be something you sell for $9.99, but they're going to forever be coming back to purchase that one item for you. And again, you can just say it at the top of your show or link in the description. And that's that residual passive income that's working on your behalf. So you don't have to overextend yourself, in that way. So that's my thought for what you're doing. I think you're doing amazing. Um, when it comes to tell us how are you using, because I love that you said you're going into a different establishment and you're on your pamphlets adding information to the podcast. So just branding wise and marketing, where are you going to leave that kind of information? And then what important things do you keep on the pamphlet?
So the well, it's my tutoring services that I put on the pamphlet, and then it's like where like the services that I offer, where I go, my contact information, nice pretty stock photo pictures, right? The coupon code. Um, and then as of the podcast, I have it on, well, this is on the brochure itself. I have it on the back of the brochure. So it's a trifold brochure, and on the back of it, in the middle part, I have we have a podcast, check it out, and then there's a QR code. Um, and I don't have it on me, but there's a QR code on the back of it, and you scan the QR code, and it takes you to um, which is another thing. So I created a section on my website that is devoted to the podcast. Um, so you scan the QR code and it takes you to my website, which has all of my tutoring information already, but there's a certain section for the podcast. So on that section of where the podcast is, it's all the different ways that my podcast is presented, right? So you'll learn about the podcast itself, and then which is the beauty of using um I use Wix. So Wix has a lot of features that allows me to um integrate the podcast into onto the website. So you'll see all of my YouTube videos. You'll see well, I use Spreaker, and Spreaker allows you to embed a virtual
Mm-hmm.
player. So I have embedded that in the website. So there's an audio subpage, there's a video subpage. I also have the subpage um where it's on TV, so you'll see the channels that it's on. I also have the radio subpage as well. I mean it's one station, but it's there.
Oh, okay,
So
well,
basically
okay, TV and radio, you're already doing it.
Yeah, it's already there.
Okay.
So the QR code takes you to that. So it takes you to my tutoring website anyway. So while you're checking out the podcast there, you're like you're like you'll see like um services that we offer, how to become a tutor, like you'll see that at the top of the page. So you're already there, right? And I even um have the I already have the cookie already, which is kind of a fancy way to say we're tracking you. All right. So once you get to the website already, it's already a cookie on your computer. But if you go on Facebook, you'll see my ads just start showing up out of the blue.
I
Um,
love that. The algorithms, the
yeah, the
ads working.
algorithms, yes.
So
So
then
that's how, yeah. So that's how it works in terms of
I,
um getting you to my website for the tutoring services.
I think you're checking all the boxes. Not even the people that I work with wouldn't even think to go into a different establishment and promote their podcast. They're not taking that step. Do you think that the business gave you the boldness to go into establishments, or the podcast, or just combining and having this strong presence, or this thing that you're marketing, which gave you the authority to go into different spaces to talk about what you do? Because not many people are doing that.
Yeah, honestly, I would say the podcasting, and this goes back to building the network because I never thought about integrating the podcast onto my current website. So, because of the networking groups and um I think there was one podcaster that I linked up with who was like, I just want to give out free advice. And so I was like, I can use some free advice. So I went and I spoke to him and he said, you should get it on your website. And I was like, how do I do that? So I told him I use Wix and he's like, oh, well, Wix has all these features. We can use X, Y, and Z. And I was like, oh, okay. Um, and so I started to do that and it's worked out. So I think it's because of networking and finding other podcasters and then podcasters willing to share information that would help you. Um, I think that's what allowed me to expand my brand. So even
Mhm.
with the TV, right, is someone else who another podcaster and Facebook groups has been very helpful, but it's another podcaster who was like, you should get on public access TV. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I looked into it and it's local in every city, but so what I stayed within my local area. So I stayed within New York City, but because I looked into it and I was curious and I again it was something I was curious about getting on TV and so here's public access. And I was like, I was wonder how that works. And so I looked into it and the process and I was like, I know how to manipulate the video files. So I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna go for it. And here I am, right?
Mhm.
So, and I'm like, how many other little towns and cities can I do? Right? So, I think it's the podcasting that has expanded my reach. So it's connecting with other podcasters, it's networking, it's sharing information. So all of these things that it's all of these things that just kind of opened itself up to me that I'm able to, you know, put my show out into all these different arenas. And then because I'm already promoting the tutoring through the podcast, now it's spreading out to all these other different arenas.
You are
Um,
a woman after my own heart, because you are just doing all of the things that I think helps connect the dots. And I hope people are listening, seeing what the potential is for how you can use and leverage your podcast, your voice, and your platform to create these different revenue streams, and then also feed it into the business and build yourself as the authority online in these digital spaces. For all of those things, I love podcasting. I know you've been doing this for some time as well. 5 years in, I heard you say, I think
4 years in. So this
4 years
October,
in.
this July coming would make it 5 years.
Okay. See, there you go. All right. Well, for that, I want to say thank you. I think you're doing an amazing job again. I'd be interested to see how you and I can both work together to scale and get into that next phase. I think you're at a point where, bringing someone along the ride to help you put all the pieces together is important for your success. But tell people how they can follow up with you and work with you or hire you for your tutoring services.
Yeah, so definitely go to my website. So my website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. So there you can learn all about the tutoring services I offer. So if you're looking for in-person, it is specific to New York City, well, parts of New York City and parts of Long Island. But if you happen to not be in any of those parts, I do offer virtual tutoring as well. So go to my website, www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com, so you can learn about um, all my tutoring services and how I can come out to you. And I also want to plug my podcast, which is called Hot Topics, which Danny, you were a guest on. So it's called Hot Topics. So you could find the video part of it on YouTube. So A Step Ahead Tutoring Services is on YouTube. So I want you guys to go check me out on YouTube, and it's just all hot topics there. I'm also on audio as well, so you can listen to me on any platform. So whether it's Spotify or Apple Podcasts, Hot Topics is there. In regards to that, there is other Hot Topic shows. So I encourage you to search using the company name. So that's A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So when you do the search, it will pop up Hot Topics. You'll see the big pencil logo. Yes, but you can listen to us in your radio on the radio, in your car, on your phone. But yes, but Hot Topics is the name of the show. But of course, all of this information is central in one place, which is my website, which is, I will say one more time, www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com.
Yep, we are linking that right now under this live on Facebook. We thank you all for joining and listening. Thank you for joining us, Gabrielle, for this amazing, insightful episode. And yeah, we are probably going to be venturing into more of these conversations with other podcasters from our community. So if you are in our group, then we are extending the invite for you to join us on the platform. But we'll talk to you all later. Have an amazing Monday. Bye.
Bye.
Honestly, I have to get used to my buttons now that I'm on my phone, you guys. Sorry. It wasn't as cohesive. Let's see. There we go.